In 2015, then Governor Mike Pence signed right to try legislation. In the State of the Union, President Trump said, and I'm quoting, "We also believe that patients with terminal conditions should have access to experimental treatments that could potentially save their lives." The president then continued, quote, "People who are terminally ill should not have to go from country to country to seek a cure. I want to give them a chance right here at home. It is time for the Congress to give these wonderful Americans the right to try." Mr. Messer, where are you on right to try?
I agree with the president 100%. You know, Tony, my mother, Chris, is here tonight. We in our family have had a history of cancer. I mean, this is something that families all across Indiana have to deal with. And I do believe when somebody is in a situation where they're trying to deal with terminal illness, they ought to be in charge of their own future and their own life. By the way, I think in the broader debate on health care, this right to, I don't know what that
it's letting you know that they like
courthouse
your
or something, isn't it, Tony? But anyway, you know, listen, I think in many ways this question highlights the difference between what most of us as conservatives believe about individuals and being in charge of yourself and personal responsibility, and what many on the left believe about how the smart folks in government ought to be able to decide your decisions for you. There's no more heinous part of Obamacare than the IPAP board that gets to decide for individuals whether they're going to be able to be in control of their own healthcare future. Just one example of why Obamacare is a terrible law for working families and needs to go away. Again, make no mistake about it, Joe Donnelly can say whatever he wants to say back here in Indiana. Joe Donnelly was a tie-breaking vote for Obamacare in Washington when it passed the first time, and he has consistently been a vote to keep Obamacare. And we need to make sure Hoosiers understand that, because frankly, when Hoosiers understand the truth about Joe Donnelly's going to be in a whole lot of trouble.
Mr. Rokita, right to try?
Of course. It's just like big government. It's just like Joe Donnelly. It's just like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and all the rest. No matter what the issue, whether it's the right to try concept, or whether it's health care, or whether it's roads, or whether it's taxes, whatever it is, their idea is that they know how to run our lives better than we do. And as conservatives, what I'm for is for us running our own lives and reaping the benefits of those decisions and taking care of the responsibility of those decisions. That's also important too. And we are getting to a point in our culture where we don't want to be responsible for our own decisions. We want to put that off on the collective, and Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama and all the rest, and Schumer and Donnelly are all for that, as long as they can run your lives. I don't want to be the subject of my government. It's we the people. We are supposed to be above our government, and the law is supposed to be above us all. Right to try is about individualism. I certainly support it, and I support the president like I do in a lot of areas, like I have during the campaign.
So, Mr. Rokita, if you're a believer in right to try, does that also extend to other conversations? For example, should people in Indiana and across America have the right to try medical marijuana?
You know what? I like to tell you the story about my son Teddy. Our son Teddy. He was our firstborn, and he has a very rare and neurological, very severe and rare neurological disorder called Angelman syndrome. And if he walked in here right now, he wouldn't be able to do it well, and he wouldn't be able to talk, and he'll have very diminished intellectual capacity. He'll have a full physical life, but he'd be very happy, and he'd give each one of you a hug. Yes, you too as well. Angelman kids also have seizures, and they're very bad, and I know there's a lot of listeners and watchers out there tonight whose kids have seizures too. If medical marijuana helps, we should let people do it. But the medical marijuana that helps Teddy, and I think that helps in a medical situation, is one that has the THC removed. I never will be in favor of marijuana to be used as a gateway drug or to legalize marijuana. I think that's wrong. I think that leads to a lot of other problems in our society.
Mr. Braun, in Indiana, CBD oil has been an incredible conversation. The Indiana State Legislature has gone about rewriting the law because they didn't get it right the first time. You may have still been there. And creating the checklist, if you will, the database, I should say, for those with epilepsy. Does right to try include medical marijuana, and should CBD oil be something that's taken up in the Senate as a way to help those people who are terminally ill or otherwise, seizures, et cetera, dealing with these health issues?
I think if you believe in free markets and freedom of choice, the answer is yes. And I think these guys, I didn't hear much meat in those responses. I heard some platitudes about what you do philosophically. This right here is going to be a clear difference, and I'd like you to listen to it, because I want to get back to what we did in our own health care plan that incorporates all these ideas of making it consumer-driven, taking the mystery out of it. It is very simple. We do not have a competitive delivery of health care services in this country. And when you combine a dysfunctional health care industry with big government, there's no surprise we got the result. So what it's going to take is creative thought to where you put consumer-driven tactics in there, you give choice across the board, you let consumers own their own health care. When you do that, you'll get competition going, pricing and getting competition on services, and you'll see a big difference. We've done some of that, and I'd love to elaborate on it later.